Every morning began the same way, quiet, ordinary, unnoticed. No one at his office knew that the most patient man in she had built an empire from nothing. Yet the one thing money could never buy kept slipping through her fingers, until the answer.
You need to trust me. This is just the beginning. One quiet sentence from her assistant cut straight through years of guarded silence.
After months of searching, she finally understood. He was never helping her find someone else. He was right there, the entire time.
Ethan Cole never planned on becoming his boss's matchmaker. If you had told him 3 months earlier that he would spend his evenings coaching Vanessa Steele, the CEO of Steele Media Group, through first date after first date, he would have laughed, shaken his head, and gone back to packing his daughter's lunch. But life has a strange way of handing people exactly what they were never looking for, and by the time Ethan understood what was happening to him, it was already too late to pretend otherwise. If this story pulls you in even a little, do him a favor right now, tap that like button and subscribe, because what happens between these two only gets more surprising from here. Ethan was 34 years old, a single father raising his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, alone since his wife passed away 2 years earlier. He worked as an executive assistant at Steele Media, a job he had taken not out of ambition but out of necessity, because the hours were stable and the paycheck covered daycare, rent, and little else. He was not the kind of man who stayed late chasing promotions or worked a room at happy hour hoping to be noticed. Every day at 5:30, without fail, he packed his bag, said goodnight to whoever remained in the office, and drove across town to pick up his daughter from his sister's house. To most of his co-workers, he was polite, quiet, and easy to overlook. The man who refilled the coffee machine, remembered everyone's birthday, and never seemed to want anything for himself. What none of them realized was how closely he was paying attention to everyone around him, including the woman who signed his paycheck. Vanessa Steele was the opposite of Ethan in almost every visible way. She had built her company from the wreckage of her father's failing advertising firm, turning it into one of the most respected media companies in the state through sheer discipline and relentless focus. At 32 years old, she had more professional success than she knew what to do with, and a personal life that existed almost entirely inside a phone. In the form of dating apps, she opened out of habit and closed out of disappointment. She told herself she simply had not met the right person yet. She did not yet understand that the right person had been quietly organizing her calendar for over a year. It started on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon that neither of them would forget. Vanessa called Ethan into her office expecting a quick administrative task. Help wording a professional bio for a dating profile a friend had convinced her to finally try. She had not intended to ask his opinion on anything beyond the sentence structure, but as she read the bio aloud, half embarrassed and joking about how ridiculous the entire exercise felt, Ethan said something she did not expect to hear from the man who brought her coffee every morning. "You're describing what you've accomplished," he said gently, "not who you are when nobody's watching." Vanessa looked up from her screen, caught completely off guard by the observation. "And you would know the difference." "I raise a 7-year-old alone," he said simply. "I know the difference between what people see and what's actually true pretty well." She did not respond right away. Something about the honesty in his voice unsettled her in a way she could not immediately name. After a long pause, she asked him to help her rewrite the whole thing from scratch. What began as one afternoon quietly turned into a routine that neither of them had planned or discussed. Vanessa would match with someone new, feel a flicker of uncertainty, and ask Ethan's read on the conversation before agreeing to meet them in person. He had a quiet gift for noticing things other people missed, a red flag hidden inside a joke, a kindness that felt rehearsed rather than real, a compliment that was secretly about the other person's ego rather than hers. He was not trying to be clever or impress her. He simply paid attention, the same careful way he paid attention to Lily's moods before she ever said a single word about her day at school. But even as he helped her prepare for date after date, something inside him was quietly beginning to shift, and he did not yet have a name for it either. The dates themselves became a parade of near misses that Vanessa recounted every Monday morning over coffee in her office. There was a hedge fund manager who spent 40 uninterrupted minutes talking about his car, a charming architect who turned visibly cold the moment she mentioned she worked more hours than he did, a kind but painfully dull marketing consultant who fell asleep during dessert before the check even arrived. Every single time, Ethan asked her the same quiet question, the one that eventually became a private ritual between them. "Did he ask about your life?" he would say, "or did he just tell you about his?" The question always made her pause. It was starting to make her wonder why no one else had ever thought to ask it. Somewhere in the middle of those weeks, something began to shift between them, though neither one said it out loud. Vanessa noticed she was looking forward to those Monday debriefs more than she looked forward to the dates themselves. She realized she trusted Ethan's judgment more than her own instincts, not because he ever told her what to do, but because he listened without any agenda hiding underneath it. He never once used those private moments to advance himself. He never flirted, never hinted, never tried to make the conversation about him. And strangely, that restraint was exactly what made her more curious about who he really was outside the walls of that office. She learned about Lily almost by accident one afternoon, catching sight of a child's crayon drawing taped carefully inside his laptop bag. When she asked about it, something in Ethan's entire face changed, softened, opened up in a way she had never seen from him before. He told her about his wife, about the year after she passed when he had nearly lost himself trying to hold everything together for Lily's sake, about the promotion he had quietly turned down 18 months earlier because it would have required travel he could not manage alone with a 6-year-old. He said all of it plainly, without any trace of self-pity, the way people speak about things they have finally made peace with. Vanessa sat across from him that afternoon and realized, with a small jolt, that she had never once asked a single date the kinds of questions Ethan had just answered without her even asking. Still, she pushed forward with her search because it felt safer than sitting still with whatever she was starting to feel. She agreed to a date with a surgeon named Marcus, confident, articulate, seemingly flawless on paper in every way that used to matter to her. Ethan reviewed the messages the way he always did, but this time, something in his expression looked different, quieter, guarded in a way she had never seen from him before. He told her Marcus seemed like a genuinely good match, and he meant every word of it, even though saying it clearly cost him something he was not ready to name. The date went remarkably well. Marcus was attentive, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in her work in a way that felt refreshing. For the first time in months, Vanessa returned to the office energized instead of drained. She told Ethan about it the next morning, watching his reaction more carefully than she meant to, though she could not have explained exactly why it mattered so much to her. He smiled, congratulated her warmly, and went back to his desk without another word. But Lily, who had tagged along to the office that day during a school break, noticed something her father was trying very hard to hide from everyone, including himself. "You don't look happy that she's happy," Lily said, swinging her legs from the tall chair beside his desk. "I am happy for her," Ethan said carefully. "That's not what I asked." Children have an uncanny way of asking the exact question adults spend years avoiding. Ethan did not answer her that afternoon, but he did not sleep much that night either, and for the first time, he began to wonder whether he had been fooling anyone at all, including himself. Vanessa saw Marcus twice more over the following 2 weeks. He was everything she had once believed she wanted, successful, kind, effortlessly easy to be around in public. And yet each time she left those dates, she found herself replaying her Monday conversations with Ethan instead, wishing she could tell him exactly how the evening had gone, wanting his reaction far more than she had wanted the date itself. It was on the third dinner, listening to Marcus describe a hospital fundraising gala in exhausting detail, that she realized with sudden and uncomfortable clarity that she had spent weeks comparing every man she met to someone who was not even trying to be compared to. She ended things with Marcus gently the very next day, telling him honestly that her attention had drifted elsewhere, even though she had not yet admitted the full truth to herself. Then she did something she had never once done in 3 months of matchmaking sessions with Ethan. She stopped opening the dating app altogether, and for 2 full weeks, she avoided the subject entirely during their Monday meetings, hoping the feeling would simply fade if she refused to look directly at it. It did not fade. It sharpened. She began noticing small details she had somehow overlooked before. How Ethan remembered exactly how she took her coffee without ever having to ask again. How he stayed 20 minutes late without a single complaint whenever she needed help finishing something. How Lily's drawings had slowly filled the inside of his laptop bag over the months, each one a quiet, unremarkable record of a life he was building with enormous care and almost no recognition from anyone around him. The more she noticed, the harder it became to pretend she had not noticed at all. She tried for a while to talk herself out of it the way she talked herself through every difficult decision at work, by breaking the problem down into manageable pieces and looking for the flaw in her own reasoning. He worked for her. That alone should have ended the conversation before it started. She had built her entire career on maintaining exactly the kind of boundaries that made a company function, and crossing one this personal felt, on paper, like the single worst decision available to her. But every time she ran the numbers in her head, the same stubborn fact refused to move. It was not simply that she liked being around him. It was that she trusted him more completely than she had trusted anyone in years, and trust, she was beginning to understand, was worth more than any of the qualities she had once listed so confidently on a dating profile he had helped her rewrite. She caught herself wondering, more than once, whether he had somehow known that all along and had simply been too careful, too decent to ever say so. The moment that changed everything happened on a Friday evening neither of them had planned for. Vanessa stayed late finishing an important proposal, and Ethan stayed to help, the two of them alone in the office long after everyone else had gone home for the weekend. When they finally finished, exhausted and laughing over a typo that had somehow slipped into 3 separate drafts, Vanessa suggested they get some air on the rooftop terrace before heading their separate ways for the night. Standing at the railing with the city lights spreading out beneath them, Vanessa turned to Ethan and finally told him the truth she had spent weeks avoiding. She told him that every man she had met over the past several months had been quietly measured against a standard she had never consciously set for herself: patience, honesty, the simple ability to really listen without wanting anything back. And she told him that the standard had a name, and it was not something she had ever swiped past on a screen. It was him. Ethan did not respond for a long moment, the city humming quietly below them. He finally admitted that he had known, in some careful corner of himself, for longer than he wanted to admit out loud, but that he had never once planned on saying it. Not because he did not feel it, but because he worked for her, because he had a daughter who came first in every decision he made, because falling for the person who signed his paycheck felt like exactly the kind of complication his careful, steady life could not afford to survive. "Then let's stop being careful," Vanessa said quietly. It was not a dramatic declaration. It was simple, honest, and true, the same way everything between them had always been from that very first Tuesday afternoon. They did not rush anything after that night. Vanessa restructured his role within the company in the weeks that followed, not as some grand romantic gesture, but because she had finally seen clearly the value he had quietly brought to nearly every part of the business he had supported for years without asking for credit. Ethan introduced her to Lily properly a month later over pancakes on a slow Saturday morning, and watched with something close to relief as his daughter warmed to her almost instantly, later declaring with total confidence that Vanessa asked good questions, just like Dad. Word spread through the office slowly, the way these things always do, but there was no scandal attached to it, no whispered gossip that ever managed to stick. Anyone who had watched Ethan and Vanessa closely over the past few months understood exactly how it had happened, not through some grand pursuit or dramatic gesture, but through the quiet accumulation of 100 small honesties that neither of them had realized they were building toward all along. A year later, Vanessa stood at the back of Lily's second-grade art show holding Ethan's hand, studying a crayon drawing of the 3 of them standing together on the rooftop terrace where everything had finally changed. Underneath, in a child's careful handwriting, it read, "My dad helped my new mom find the right person. It was him the whole time." Ethan looked at Vanessa, and Vanessa looked back at him, and neither of them needed to say a single word to understand what the other was thinking. Sometimes the person you are searching for is not found through a search at all. Sometimes they are the one who has been quietly, patiently there the entire time, packing lunches before sunrise, remembering the coffee order, asking the right questions, waiting not to be chosen, but simply to be seen. And sometimes the bravest thing anyone can do is finally stop being careful and let themselves be found.